The summer sun was shining brightly on the residential neighborhood in Santa Barbara, California. Amy Roberts sat on her porch, gently resting her hand on her swollen belly with a peaceful smile. 7 months pregnant, a new life was growing inside her with a tangible presence. "Mom, what's the baby doing now?" Noah, her 6-year-old son who had been running around the yard, suddenly stopped and gazed at Amy's stomach with curious eyes. His black hair was slightly damp with sweat, and his cheeks were flushed red from playing in the sun. "Probably sleeping. But the baby might hear your voice," Amy answered gently. "Would you like to put your hand on my tummy? You might feel movement." Noah carefully placed his small palm on Amy's belly. After a moment, he felt a definite kick, and his eyes widened in surprise. It moved. "Mom, my brother or sister just said hello." Amy felt a warmth in her heart at her son's innocent joy. Noah was looking forward to the birth of his sibling and already seemed to feel the responsibility of being a big brother. Every night, he eagerly volunteered to read his favorite picture books to the baby. A ringtone sounded from inside the house, and Amy slowly got to her feet. Her movements had become somewhat sluggish since becoming pregnant. When she entered the living room, her smartphone screen was lit up on the table, displaying her husband Michael's name. "Honey, is this a good time?" Amy answered the phone. "Yes, just finished a meeting. The work in Seattle is almost wrapped up. By the way, did you get any message from my mother?" Amy frowned. She hadn't received any communication from her mother-in-law, Martha. In the 5 years since marrying Michael, she had tried to maintain a good relationship with her in-laws while keeping an appropriate distance. However, something lurking beneath Martha's superficial warmth always made Amy feel tense. "Nothing in particular. Oh, wait," she said, keeping the phone to her ear as she noticed an envelope on the kitchen counter. It must have been mixed in with the morning mail. "There's an envelope here. Could it be from Martha?" "Probably. My parents are celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary, and I think they're planning something." Michael's voice held a note of pride. "I'd love for you to attend, but I'm concerned it might be too much for you during pregnancy." Amy opened the envelope and took out an elegant cream-colored invitation. It was indeed an invitation to celebrate Martha and George's wedding anniversary. Amy hesitated for a moment but understood this was an important family event for Michael. "It's fine. Noah would enjoy it too, and it's just for the weekend, so I can manage," she replied calmly. "Since you're on a business trip, Noah and I will go." "Really? Thank you, Amy. Mom and Dad will be delighted. They're especially looking forward to seeing Noah." After hanging up, Amy took a deep breath, as if trying to shake off a subtle anxiety about visiting her in-laws. That weekend, Amy took Noah to her in-laws' home in Connecticut. The flight was tiring, but seeing Noah's excitement made it worthwhile. The in-laws' house was a traditional 2-story building on a spacious property, exuding a traditional Southern atmosphere. As the car pulled up to the entrance, the door opened, and Martha and George came out to greet them. Martha was a woman with neatly groomed white hair and an elegant appearance. George, on the other hand, had a gentle smile and immediately opened his arms when he spotted his grandson Noah. "Noah! My precious grandson is here!" George called out with genuine delight. Noah jumped out of the car and rushed into his grandfather's arms. Amy slowly got out of the car, supporting her stomach as she watched them. Martha approached Amy with a formal smile. "Amy, I'm glad you came. The long journey must have been difficult during pregnancy." The words sounded considerate, but Martha's eyes were surprisingly cold. Despite feeling uncomfortable, Amy smiled back politely. "Thank you, Martha. Congratulations on your anniversary." As they entered the house, Rachel appeared from the kitchen. Michael's 29-year-old sister had distinctive dark brown hair and sharp eyes like her brother. She was unmarried and lived with her parents. Welcome, Amy, Rachel smiled, though her smile seemed somewhat unnatural. How's the baby doing? Very well. The doctor says everything is fine, Amy replied politely. That's good. Rachel's gaze lingered on Amy's belly with a look that suggested she had something to say. Noah, will you give your aunt a hug? Noah hesitated briefly before approaching Rachel for a hug. Amy watched, feeling somewhat uncomfortable. When dinner preparations began, Amy offered to help, but Martha politely declined, saying, "You should rest." Sitting on the living room sofa, looking at the family photos on the wall, Noah came running up to her. Mom, Grandma and Aunt Rachel were saying strange things, Noah whispered. What kind of things? Amy looked into her son's clear eyes. I don't know. But they were talking in low voices, and when I came in, they suddenly stopped talking. Amy felt a slight concern but thought it might be a child's imagination and gently stroked Noah's head. It's okay, they were probably just having an adult conversation. However, when she heard Martha and Rachel's hushed voices from the dining room, Amy's unease grew. Still, she took a deep breath and decided to maintain a smile for the family. This visit was about honoring Michael's family. She resolved to be polite despite the discomfort. Amy felt the baby move and hoped everything would pass without incident. As dinner time approached, Martha began setting out an elaborate meal on the table. Roast chicken, gratin, seasonal vegetable salad, and homemade bread. Everything was perfectly prepared, and Amy couldn't help but be impressed. Martha seemed to take pride in her culinary skills. Everyone, please be seated, Martha gestured elegantly toward the dining chairs. Amy, you sit here. Noah, sit next to Grandma. Amy carefully sat down, supporting her belly. Noah sat next to his grandmother with a slightly anxious expression. George looked around at the family with a warm smile and raised his glass. I'm grateful for the 25 years I've spent with Martha. And for being blessed with a wonderful family, he said with emotion. I'm truly happy that Amy and Noah could come in Michael's place. Cheers. Rachel raised her voice somewhat dramatically, lifting her non-alcoholic sparkling wine. As the meal began, a pleasant atmosphere prevailed briefly. But then Martha suddenly stood up and headed to the kitchen. Amy, I've prepared a special tea for you, she said as she returned. In Martha's hands was a beautiful porcelain cup filled with fragrant herbal tea. This is a herbal blend that's very good for pregnant women. I learned about it from a friend who's a naturopathic doctor. Amy hesitated a little. Thank you, but water is fine for me. Don't be shy, Martha's voice had a subtle force to it. It's good for pregnancy-related swelling too. Try it. To avoid awkwardness, Amy accepted the cup. The aroma was indeed pleasant, and she thought that herbal tea for pregnancy discomforts couldn't be harmful. She took a small sip. The taste was slightly bitter but not unpleasant. It's delicious, thank you, Amy smiled politely. As the meal progressed, Rachel abruptly changed the subject. By the way, Amy. Have you and Michael discussed insurance? Amy looked up in surprise. Insurance? Yes, life insurance, Rachel said casually. Especially now with a second child on the way, shouldn't you be thinking about what would happen if something occurred? Rachel, George spoke reprovingly. Such talk at the dinner table. But it's important, isn't it? Martha interrupted her husband. Michael is a responsible person, so he must have made thorough preparations for his family. Right, Amy? Amy answered, feeling uncomfortable. Yes, Michael took out a new insurance policy for the family last month. I see, Amy didn't miss the glance exchanged between Martha and Rachel. What would happen to Noah and the baby if something happened? Rachel pressed further. If something happened to both you and Michael. Rachel. George raised his voice. That's enough. Amy took another sip of the herbal tea, trying to distract herself from the unpleasant conversation. However, she noticed her vision beginning to blur. She felt as if the room was spinning slightly, and her body felt heavy. Amy, are you all right? George's voice seemed to come from far away. I feel dizzy, Amy managed to say. The teacup slipped from her hand, creating a brown stain on the tablecloth. Mom. Noah's voice was filled with fear. Mom, what's wrong? Amy tried to stand up but couldn't find the strength in her legs. She slid from her chair and collapsed on the floor. Instinctively, she tried to protect her belly with both hands, worried about the baby. Mom! Noah screamed in terror, rushing to Amy's side. As consciousness slipped away, Amy felt something was off about Martha and Rachel's reactions. They didn't seem to be panicking or rushing to help. Rather, they appeared to be calmly observing the situation. Ambulance! Amy whispered weakly. The baby. She saw George hurrying toward the phone. But she also vaguely noticed Martha grabbing her husband's arm. Don't panic, she's probably just tired. But, Martha. The last thing Amy heard was the sound of a doorbell from the neighboring house. Then she lost consciousness completely. When she next opened her eyes, Amy was looking up at an unfamiliar ceiling. White ceiling, the smell of disinfectant, and the regular beeping of machines. It didn't take long to understand she was in a hospital. Mom. Responding to the small voice, Amy turned her face sideways. There sat Noah with red, swollen eyes. His expression mixed fear and relief. Noah. Amy forced out a voice from her dry throat. It's okay. Mom. I was so scared. Noah said in a trembling voice. You fell on the floor and didn't move. He continued, nearly crying. Grandma and Aunt Rachel were strange. They didn't try to help. Just as Amy was trying to understand the meaning of Noah's words, the hospital room door opened. A doctor in a white coat and a police officer in uniform entered. Mrs. Roberts, the doctor approached carefully. I'm glad you've regained consciousness. You and your baby are stable. Amy felt relieved, but she questioned the police officer's presence. What happened? After the doctor and police officer exchanged glances, the doctor said quietly, Mrs. Roberts, please stay calm as you listen. The tone of his voice made Amy's heart beat faster. A dangerous amount of arsenic was detected in your body. Upon hearing those words, Amy's entire body felt ice cold. She began to tremble with fear, instinctively placing her hand on her stomach. Someone had tried to kill her and her baby. That terrifying truth was etched into her heart. Arsenic. Amy repeated in disbelief. Why in my body? The police officer stepped forward, opening a notebook. Mrs. Roberts, I'm Detective Brown. If you're up to it, could you tell us what you remember? Amy took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She looked at Noah and smiled to reassure him that he shouldn't be afraid. Noah, could you wait in the hallway for a little while? No, I don't want to leave you, Noah shook his head firmly. The doctor gently intervened. There's juice and cookies at the nurse's station. How about taking a short break and then coming back to Mom? Noah hesitated but seemed reassured by the doctor's warm eyes and nodded quietly. I'll be right back, Mom. After Noah left the room with a nurse, Amy began to trace her memories. I was having dinner at my in-laws' home. My mother-in-law Martha gave me herbal tea that she said was good for pregnant women. Her voice trembled. After drinking it, I felt dizzy, and the next thing I knew, I woke up here. Did you see who prepared the herbal tea? Detective Brown asked calmly. Martha. She brought it from the kitchen. Was there anything else that concerned you? Conversations or family behavior? Amy furrowed her brow. During the meal, my sister-in-law Rachel suddenly started talking about life insurance. She knew about the policy my husband Michael had recently taken out. She stumbled over her words. She used phrases like, if something were to happen. The two detectives exchanged glances. Mrs. Roberts, we actually received a call from a neighbor, right after you collapsed. Amy's eyes widened in surprise. A neighbor. The Jennings couple. They noticed something amiss through the window and came to check. The front door was open, so they entered and found you collapsed on the floor with your child crying out, the female detective explained. Sensing something unnatural about the situation, the couple called an ambulance and notified the police. But my father-in-law George was trying to call an ambulance too, Amy said in confusion. We're investigating that as well, Detective Brown's expression hardened. According to Mrs. Jennings, Martha and Rachel insisted that she just fainted from pregnancy-related anemia and were reluctant to call an ambulance. A chill ran down Amy's spine. She instinctively placed her hand on her stomach. Is the baby okay? The doctor smiled reassuringly. Your child is safe. The fetal heartbeat is normal, and no abnormalities have been detected. Fortunately, thanks to the Jennings' quick response, we were able to treat the arsenic you were given before it reached a fatal dose. Amy sighed with relief but was immediately gripped by another fear. Michael, has my husband been contacted? We've already contacted him, the female detective replied. He's on his way back from his business trip. At that moment, there was a knock, and a nurse returned with Noah. Amy smiled at her son, but shadows of fear remained on his face. Noah, these police officers are investigating what happened. Can you tell them what you saw? Amy gently asked. Noah looked at the police officers and seemed a bit tense, but he gathered his courage and began to speak. Grandma made special tea. But she gave Mom different tea from everyone else. Different tea. Detective Brown knelt to meet Noah's eye level. Why do you think it was different? Because after she poured tea into everyone's cups from the teapot, she brought Mom's cup from somewhere else, Noah explained with a serious expression. And also. He hesitated. It's okay, Noah. You can say anything, Amy encouraged her son. I saw Grandma and Aunt Rachel putting white powder in Mom's cup when they were in the kitchen, Noah's voice grew smaller. They said, this will make everything go according to plan. The police officers exchanged glances and asked Noah for more details. He also told them that before dinner, he had overheard Martha and Rachel whispering words like, insurance money, and, all ours. They tried to kill me, Amy said in a trembling voice. We'll obtain a search warrant and begin searching the Roberts home, Detective Brown said in a resolute tone. If evidence is found, we'll also request arrest warrants. Late that night, the hospital room door burst open, and Michael rushed in, out of breath. Fatigue and anxiety were etched on his face. Amy. He hurried to her bedside, tried to embrace her, but suddenly stopped. The baby. We're both fine, Amy reached out and took Michael's hand. Thanks to Noah's courage and the neighbor's quick thinking. Michael pulled Noah, who was sitting beside the bed, close. You did well, Noah. You were truly brave. I was so scared when Mom collapsed. Noah buried his face in his father's chest. A look of agony crossed Michael's face. When I got the call from the police, I couldn't believe it, that my mother and sister. At that moment, the door opened again, and Detective Brown entered. His expression showed determination. Mr. Roberts, Martha and Rachel Roberts have been arrested, he announced matter-of-factly. During the search of the home, we found arsenic and documents relating to your and your wife's life insurance policies. We also confirmed search history on Rachel's computer regarding the effects of poisons and detection methods. Michael was at a loss for words, simply holding his head in his hands. Amy placed her hand on her husband's shoulder and said quietly, "It's not your fault. Before the trial begins, we'll need formal statements from both of you," the detective continued. "You both need rest, but there's sufficient evidence. It's almost certain they'll be found guilty." As silence enveloped the room, the light of dawn was gradually spreading outside the window. The night of terror was breaking, and a new day was beginning. Amy felt the baby moving inside her as she looked at Noah and Michael. Her family had overcome the worst ordeal and was still here. For now, that was enough. On the day of her discharge, Amy looked up at the blue sky visible from the hospital window. The 3-day hospital stay had been short, but it felt like an eternity to her. The doctors had carefully observed her and the fetus's condition and fortunately concluded that neither had suffered serious effects. "Ready?" Michael entered the hospital room. Dark circles of fatigue remained under his eyes, but his smile was gentle. "Yes, I want to go home," Amy nodded slightly. She picked up the small bag placed on the bed and slowly stood up. Feeling the baby moving energetically, she sighed with relief. In the hallway, Noah was waiting with a social worker. The shadow of the first day's terror remained on her son's face, but it brightened when he saw his father. "Dad. Mom. Can we go home now?" "Yes, everything's okay now," Michael picked Noah up. "Let's go home." After completing the discharge procedures, as they were heading toward the elevator, their attending physician caught up with them. "Mrs. Roberts, one more thing," he held out an envelope. "This is a list of psychological counselors. Both you and your child may be experiencing trauma from this incident. Please don't hesitate to contact someone if you feel it's necessary." Amy accepted the envelope with gratitude. "Thank you, Doctor. Really, for helping us. You should be grateful for your own strength, your son's courage, and your good fortune," the doctor replied sincerely. Without the Jennings' quick action, the outcome might have been different. In the car driven by Michael, Amy silently gazed at the scenery outside the window. The journey from the hospital to their suburban apartment usually took about 30 minutes, but today it felt like forever. "Michael." She finally spoke. "Can we stay at a hotel? Just for a while?" Michael nodded understandingly. "I've already made reservations. We'll just pick up some belongings and then move to another location right away." Upon arriving home, Amy paused at the entrance. This house had been a safe haven for her, but now anxiety crossed her mind. Michael gently took her hand, giving her strength. "It's okay, I'm here with you." When they entered the house, there was a bouquet of flowers on the living room table with a note that read, "From the Jennings." Amy smiled, feeling warmth in her chest at the neighbor's kindness. Michael quickly packed some clothes and essentials, and 30 minutes later, they had moved to a luxury hotel downtown. The large windows of the suite offered a beautiful view of the city lights. Noah was initially excited about the new environment, but after dinner, he suddenly became quiet. At bedtime, he wanted to crawl into his parents' bed. "Are you scared?" Amy asked, gently stroking her son's hair. "Yes." Noah answered in a small voice. "What if Mom disappears like that time?" "It's okay, Mom's not going anywhere," Amy embraced her son. "You were brave, and that's why Mom is safe now. You're a real hero." That night, Noah fell asleep between his parents, but at midnight, he woke up screaming from a nightmare. It took Michael a long time to calm him down. The next morning, when Amy woke up, Michael was already up and standing by the window. His shoulders were slumped as if carrying a heavy burden. "Couldn't sleep?" Amy gently asked. Michael turned around and smiled with a tired expression. "A little. I was thinking. Don't blame yourself. Amy got up from the bed and stood beside Michael. You didn't do anything wrong. I put our family in danger. Michael's voice was filled with anguish. If I hadn't taken out that insurance policy, my mother and sister wouldn't have. He choked on his words. I still can't believe what they were thinking. Amy placed her hand on her husband's cheek. You were just trying to protect us. Who could have predicted something like this? That afternoon, they visited the counselor recommended by the doctor. Dr. Julia Morrison was a warm woman in her 50s, specializing in children who had experienced trauma. Noah, come this way. Dr. Morrison guided Noah to a room with toys. You can play with these lovely toys while I talk with your mom and dad. While Noah played with a play therapist, Dr. Morrison faced Amy and Michael. Situations like this leave unimaginable mental scars, she said quietly. Especially betrayal from trusted family members can create the deepest wounds. I'm worried about Noah. Amy didn't hide her concern. He cries at night and doesn't want to leave my side. That's a natural reaction, Dr. Morrison explained. He experienced the fear of losing his mother. And he witnessed his grandmother, whom he trusted, trying to harm her. His worldview has been shaken to its core. She explained to them the healing process that the family should work on together. She emphasized the importance of regular sessions, maintaining a safe environment, and above all, continuing to provide Noah with a sense of security. And don't forget to take care of yourselves. Dr. Morrison looked especially at Michael. You are a victim too. As weeks passed, Amy's health steadily recovered, and the family tried to gradually return to normalcy. They moved to a temporary apartment and began a new life. Michael returned to work but frequently called home to check on Amy and Noah. 1 month after the incident, Amy had to stand in court for a preliminary hearing. Dressed in a gray maternity dress, she summoned her courage to take the witness stand. Many people had gathered in the courtroom, but what caught Amy's eye were Martha and Rachel sitting in the defendant's box. Martha maintained her elegant appearance, staring at Amy with cold eyes. Rachel looked haggard and kept her head down. Mrs. Roberts, could you explain to the court the harm you suffered from your mother-in-law and sister-in-law? The prosecutor gently prompted. Amy took a deep breath and began to speak. They tried to take my life and... She placed her hand on her stomach, and the life of my unborn child. The courtroom fell silent. You not only tried to take my life but also attempted to rob 2 children of their mother. Amy looked directly at the defendant's box. And you left an indelible scar on the heart of a 6-year-old child who was crying in terror that night. Martha's expression didn't change, but Rachel began to cry, her shoulders shaking. After the hearing, the prosecutor approached Amy and Michael. We have sufficient evidence. They will likely plead guilty without going to trial. As predicted, 2 weeks later, Martha and Rachel agreed to a plea bargain. Even more surprisingly, during the interrogation process, Martha confessed that she had also deliberately poisoned her husband George 3 years ago. It was for the insurance money, she had calmly stated. Newspapers and news outlets covered the case extensively, sensationally reporting it as the poisoning grandma. Michael kept his distance from the press, focusing on protecting his family. On the day the sentence was pronounced, Amy and Michael appeared in court. Martha was sentenced to life imprisonment for attempted first-degree murder and the past murder of her husband. Rachel received a 15-year sentence for conspiracy. As they left the courtroom, Rachel turned toward Amy and mouthed, "I'm sorry." However, Amy's expression remained unchanged as she took her husband's arm and walked out. Forgiveness had not yet been granted. Returning home, Amy lay on the sofa, exhausted. Michael brewed tea for her and gently offered it. "How's Noah?" Amy asked worriedly. "He's at the park with the babysitter," Michael replied. "He's getting better little by little." "We are too, little by little," Amy said quietly. Michael sat next to his wife and took her hand. "The nightmare is over," he said gently. "Let's look forward and move on." Amy nodded and looked up at the sky outside the window. A faint rainbow was visible in the blue sky after the rain. To her, it seemed like a symbol of a new beginning. Feeling the baby moving energetically in her belly, Amy smiled genuinely for the first time. 2 years later. The soft spring sunlight streamed through the windows, warming the living room. Amy watched the children playing in the garden with a gentle smile. 8-year-old Noah was facing his 1.5-year-old sister Emma on the lawn, gently rolling a ball to her. Little Emma laughed as she clumsily chased after the ball. 2 years since that terrifying event. Emma's birth had brought new hope and joy to the family. The healthy baby girl had a bright and active personality and especially adored her big brother Noah. "I brought coffee." Michael came out to the porch with 2 mugs. He sat next to his wife, watching the children in the garden. "I can't believe Noah has become such a kind big brother." "Yes," Amy took her husband's hand. "He's grown so much since that day." The after effects of the incident didn't disappear easily. Noah's counseling continued for over a year, and it took time before he could sleep peacefully. Michael also continued attending family therapy, confronting the deep wound of betrayal by his mother and sister. However, time was indeed bringing healing. They had purchased a new home, and Amy had begun volunteering at an NPO supporting victims of domestic violence and poisoning, alongside raising her children. She hoped her experience could support others in similar situations. "I received a letter from Rachel," Amy said quietly. Michael's expression darkened. "What did it say?" "She's in a rehabilitation program and deeply regrets what she did." Amy took a sip of coffee. "She seems to blame herself for not being able to escape her mother's influence." "Do you believe her?" "I don't know," Amy answered honestly. "But I think continuing to harbor hatred only consumes us." The children's laughter could be heard from the garden. Emma had successfully thrown the ball back for the first time, and Noah was praising her joyfully. "What about Martha?" Michael asked. "She's refusing visits." "Apparently, she maintains she's innocent," Amy sighed. "She seems isolated from other inmates as well." The two gazed at the garden scene in silence. In the distance, the Jennings house was visible, with the elderly couple tending to flowers in their garden. That night, their quick thinking had saved the family. "Sometimes, I remember that night," Amy said quietly. "But it's not as frightening as before. We're here because we had the help of wonderful people." Michael drew his wife closer. "Noah's courage, the Jennings' kindness, and your strength." Amy nodded. Over these 2 years, she had faced her fears and overcome them. Now, new days spread out before her. The past wouldn't disappear, but it no longer controlled her. "Mom! Dad! Look!" Noah shouted. Emma was walking toward them, waving her little hands and toddling along. Amy and Michael stood up and began walking toward their children. Around them, the spring light overflowed with the joy and hope of new life.